Welcome back to the MovieBabble Podcast. This week you've got myself, Collin, and I'm joined by Nick and Brennan as we break down the opening weekend for the rhythm section as well as Gretel and Hansel. Remember, as always, you can check us out online at MovieBabbleReviews.com. So, breaking down this weekend's top 5 at the box office, we have Bad Boys for Life, still going pretty strong with $17.67 million, followed by 1917 at $9.66 million, Dolittle in the number 3 spot with $7.7 million, followed by Gretel and Hansel opening up at $6.05 million, and The Gentleman rounds out the top 5 at $6.01 million. So nothing too crazy going on at the box office. We're still in kind of a slump, and I mean we'll probably get out of it a little bit this next week with Birds of Prey, but for right now we're just kind of at that beginning of the year time where nothing's making a ton of money. But Bad Boys for Life is actually going really strong. It's at almost $300 million worldwide right now. They've already greenlit a 4th movie, which I believe they actually greenlit on the release weekend for this movie. I mean, it's the 3rd weekend at the box office for Bad Boys, and it's making cash.
Yeah, I did not see this coming at all. It's actually, I mean, I talked about it a little bit a few weeks ago, but I kind of expected this movie to flop badly. Like, I saw that 90 million budget, and I just looked at all the factors. Will Smith just has a terrible picker, and I think like the last Martin Lawrence movie was like Big Mama's House. I don't even know what the hell he was last in. It was so long ago. And somehow it worked, and this movie functions like an actual movie, and it's weirdly the best Bad Boys movie. Maybe I think Bad Boys 2 is the most entertaining, but that movie is just so insane and full of cocaine that it doesn't work as an actual movie, and this one does. So it's really interesting to see. But yeah, it's really good stuff. This movie's definitely already made a profit. It's just kind of hanging out and really taking advantage of kind of this lull in the box office schedule, as you mentioned. Yeah, it's just. You really can't complain if you're Sony.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I didn't quite see coming as well. I you know what, I think that it just is a testament to like how not impactful, but how big those first 2 films were. I mean, they really galvanized a fan base after those first 2 films so many years ago. And I think it's kind of sad though for Michael Bay. I mean, the last 2 franchises that have kind of gotten a little bit of a shakeup. The Transformers one and now this one. Obviously, Bumblebee didn't perform that great at the box office. However, the film, I think, was an absolute step up from the other ones, and that's kind of what the reception is from this movie as well.
Maybe here's an idea. What if Michael Bay isn't a good director?
No,
What if?
He's not.
No,
it's just funny.
I refuse to believe it.
It's funny that back-to-back years, or these last 2 years, we just see these 2 franchises kind of get a real fresh take, and the reason is they dropped good old Michael Bay.
Yeah, I guess my thinking has always been that he was better when he was constrained by what visual effects were. I feel like Bad Boys 2 is like an interesting like breaking point where it's like it's right when like cocaine started to come into the picture, and then like visual effects started to become more of a thing. Like everything pre Bad Boys 2 is what people consider his best movies, because he kind of has to deal with just all practical stuff. And now in the Transformers movies, you have like shit flying all over the place. And if you watch like 6 Underground, it's like I have no idea what's happening. There's just CGI metal flying all over the place. It's just so incoherent. So yeah, I feel like he's just kind of stuck. He wants to do all this crazy stuff, but he doesn't quite know how to rein himself in. And he's kind of like so popular at this point, that like no like producer can be like, hey, you need to relax, Michael Bay. And he'll just be like, fuck you. I've made like $6 bajillion movies. So like he can go somewhere else with that. And now Netflix is paying him all the money. So it's just, he's in that weird zone now where he doesn't have to listen to anybody, but he really should, like really, really badly.
The rule of thumb here, I think, is just drop Michael Bay from your franchise, and you might actually have a good turnaround. So, I mean, are you guys ready for that Pearl Harbor remake yet, or what?
Sure, why not? Pearl Harbor 2.
You need Michael Bay to get it going, and then you have to hurry up and kick him out, and then bring somebody else in.
Yeah.
You gotta do the Michael J. Fox, just fire him before like a month or like a week into shooting, like they did with Back to the Future, and bring someone else in.
And I do want to touch back on Martin Lawrence. You were close. His second to last movie was Big Mama's Like Father
Ah,
Like Son in 2011, but he also appeared in last year's The Beach Bum. So he's got
oh, that's
a
right.
little bit going there.
My favorite movie ever. I love The Beach Bum. How could I forget?
And I want everyone to remember.
His character in that movie is Captain Whack, and he
I want
loves
everyone to know
dolphins a lot.
that Nick's not being sarcastic here. He loves this movie.
It made my top 10 list. It's literally one of my favorite movies of last year.
No shame.
How could I forget Captain Whack? So great. Role of a lifetime.
It's also been a weird 12 months for Will Smith because he's had two pretty solid. I mean, he had Aladdin, which grossed $1 billion against kind of everybody's expectations, and now he's got Bad Boys. But in the middle, he had I can't even think of the name, Gemini Man, which just lost all of the money, and Spies in Disguise, which just kind of exists. So he's certainly had a better year than he's had in the past couple of years.
Yeah, it's weird. We all love Will Smith, but he has a really bad IMDb. Like
It's awful.
Like I think like maybe his last good movie is like Focus, or like I don't even know like what his like good movie of this decade would be. Like he has, and you have Bright and Collateral Beauty, which is one of the most confounding like just misfires of like the last few years. And you have Suicide in there, Suicide Squad, and you have Concussion, where it's just the meme of him just yelling "Tell the truth" in the really bad, like African American accent. It's just, oh man, I mean, it's good for him because like I feel like Bad Boys for Life is the first movie in forever to kind of just let Will Smith be Will Smith, and that's when he's at his best, when he's just really charming and fun, and yeah, he's just been kind of stuck in the franchise machine for so long, just doing God knows what.
Yeah, and he's got the King Richard movie coming out later this year, which I think will be kind of a good return to form for him. That's the Venus and Serena Williams biopic, and so hopefully he's kind of on the rebound because yeah, he's had a rough decade. I will stand focused. That movie is a lot of fun, but overall, it's been pretty underwhelming.
I think besides the accent, I enjoyed Concussion. That was all right.
I don't remember it. I just remember Tell the Truth.
I mean, Will Smith, man. I mean, think of it though. He's in a lot. He's busy. I mean, I don't know. Like you're bringing it up now. That's like 4 movies in the last like 8-9 months or so. He's a busy guy.
Yeah, he comes out with like at least 1 or 2 movies every single year. Like he stays current. Like everyone, I feel like everyone likes Will Smith to some degree. It's like no one's like, ah, fuck that guy. It's like he's always around. He's really fun on social media. He has a really fun YouTube page. But yeah, it's just for whatever reason he has a really bad picker. But it is nice because Bad Boys for Life is just kind of a fun movie. It's not gonna be anywhere near my love for The Beach Bum. But it's just it exists in a good way. It's just really fun action. It's weird because it's the $90 million, not incredibly high stakes action movie, like action comedy is just not a thing we see anymore. So it is really refreshing just to kind of see this movie get made. So yeah, it's just good for Bad Boys for Life. It's just really good to see.
Yeah, it's doing business.
It's doing the thing.
I mean, it is going to have, some pretty big competition coming up this weekend, but I think overall, like it's had solid legs so far. I think it's going to keep going quite a while. And I mean, even with Birds of Prey, there's been like this controversy over a lack of pre-sales compared to other superhero movies. So I think Bad Boys is going to hold on pretty well in the weeks to come.
Yeah, it's gonna do just fine. I would guess this movie gets near 400 million when it's all said and done. It's just, and even Birds of Prey, there's not a ton of crossover in the type of audiences that would go to both of these movies. So yeah, like this movie is just gonna hang around, kind of do what a lot of these movies in the top 5 have been doing, just kind of get these like $8-9 million grosses week by week and just kind of hang around and just make decent chunks of change. So yeah, it's not going anywhere. It's gonna be probably in the top 5 for a few more weeks.
And yeah, that's Bad Boys for Life. So we'll move on to 1917, which is in its 6th week at the box office, pulling in just shy of 10 million at 9.6 million. and actually opened in 50 more theaters this week, which with BAFTAs and the Academy Awards, I think probably played a big hand in that, just as a lot of these movies are coming back and trying to make sure that they're making the most of the publicity they have right now and getting people more invested for them when it comes time to vote. But it's sitting pretty well. It's at $250 million worldwide and just has been pretty universally acclaimed, except for on this podcast. It's working. I mean, it's putting in work.
Yeah. I think Christopher Nolan probably wishes he dropped Dunkirk in like the end of December.
Yeah, well, I guess he's doing. I mean, Dunkirk did really good business, though. So
it did, but I mean, this is no.
Yeah.
I mean, it did good business, but I mean, awards-wise, like 1970.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah,
it's on another level, and I don't know. This is crazy. I think that it is the awards buzz that's driving this movie. I mean, like, perfect release time. This is one of the best planned, like, kind of just openings I've ever seen. This is great.
Yeah, it's kind of weird too, because normally that Christmas or like even that late December release for an awards movie, it doesn't always pick up quite the traction that you would think. Like, I feel like that November or October is like kind of the sweet spot for a lot of these best picture nominees. But yeah, it's doing really good business, and it's just it's cleaning up at all these awards. Well, all these awards bodies did really well at PGAs and all these other stuff. It's probably gonna win best picture. It looks like that's the case, which is just kind of not annoying to me, but just kind of like such a whatever pick that we'll forget. But yeah, it's definitely gonna, on the heels of that, just continue to do really well. Probably see it drop maybe 20% every week after it wins, something like that. It's 300 million is definitely within the realm of possibility, easily. It's like Bad Boys for Life. This one's gonna be sticking around for a much longer.
Yeah, and I think the only thing really working against 1917 is just how large the budget was. So it's estimated at about $100 million. And I mean, they marketed this like crazy. So its marketing budget's got to be pretty high. So while it definitely has made money, it's not going to be just as large of a financial success because it's sitting at about $250 million worldwide on top of what's probably about a $200 million budget when all is said and done.
Yeah, you got to think that Universal was hoping on award success, which it has gotten. So it's definitely going to be in theaters for longer. And I think part of it is like, when you win Best Picture, you're probably going to see an increase in like DVD sales and like VOD and things like that. So there's definitely a long game element to this where, I mean, I know I'm not going to be thinking about 1917 a few months from now, but the fact that it won Best Picture, there's going to be some staying power there for a lot of people. So this could be something like down the road where it's just kind of eking out like decent little profits for Universal, like in residuals and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know, but you're definitely right there. Yeah, that budget it's not great, but yeah, you really can't complain too much.
No, yeah, this thing's gonna, like as you said, it's a long game. This is their play for the big one, and I think that it's going to be like I mean, winning Best Picture, obviously, you're kind of you're there for life, right? Like you're immortalized in that respect, and the money's just going to be pouring in. So I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, it's not a concern for anybody that made the movie, but it's just money. So we'll move on to a movie that is not making money, and that is Dolittle, which with a whopping estimate of $175 million budget has managed to pull in just a little over $126 million worldwide, which is just absolutely abysmal because that's not even considering marketing costs. Dolittle is a pretty strong flop, and no one seems to really care for it either. So
yeah, it seems like this. I think there was estimates upon its release that it was going to lose $75 to $100 million for Universal. So hopefully that 1917 money kind of helps out with this one. But yeah, it's one of those really bad movies that I know Collin and I were both at Sundance and trying to catch up a lot this weekend, and I just couldn't bring myself to see this. I just don't want to. Like, it just, from everything you hear, it just sounds like it's just awful, and Robert Downey Jr. is just doing whatever the hell he's doing with that Cockney accent. And there's like a dragon fart is like the third act of this movie, apparently. That's not for me. I guess I'll see it at some point because I see everything and I'm weird like that. But yeah, I just don't. I don't want to at all.
Yeah, I mean it's a mistake. I don't think I've gotten a chance to really voice anything about this movie because I think we had the Sundance break last weekend and stuff like that. But Dolittle, I mean, I think it's just a testament that yes, Robert Downey Jr. is an absolute superstar when he's wearing the iron suit. I like there was like this is just an absolute misfire. I think they just felt we have Robert Downey Jr. Universal felt this movie's going to sell on him alone, and they had like that crazy cast that I mean in every commercial and trailer they just threw up like 20 names of pretty popular people, and they were just hoping that would work, and it just isn't. This movie's going to be lucky if it even like passes its budget, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, this is just a really weird thing, just because Downey's coming off of the biggest movie ever and doing this. Yeah, that's Doolittle.
Hooray!
I mean, he made. I think he got $20 million too for Dolittle. So I mean, he's happy. He's not complaining.
It'll be interesting to see what he does like post Iron Man and all that stuff. Because remember The Judge that came out a few years ago? It was like supposed to be like his big, like, oh, this is me going back to dramatic filmmaking. I forget when that was made. Maybe like right after Iron Man 3 or whatever, something like somewhere in there.
2016.
Yeah. So then it just wasn't good like at all, and like somehow Robert Duvall got a Best Supporting Actor nom for it. But besides that, everyone was like, yeah, this movie isn't good. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what he's into after all this is said and done, because Dolittle was one of those projects where they rewrote it on set and were doing all these crazy things. They brought in a new director because Stephen Gaghan just wasn't cutting it as the first director. So he kind of has like a clean slate after this now. So it'll be kind of interesting to see like, oh, what is he into? Is he looking to do more like high key dramatic work and like these like 30 to $40 million movies, or is he just going to be more? Is there going to be more Doolittling going on? I don't know. It's definitely something to monitor with him going forward.
Yeah. I don't know what else to say about Dolittle. I mean, it's just such an insignificant movie. It just fails at everything. That's the only thing I've heard, is that it doesn't.
It's tough time for Universal.
So with that, we'll move on to Gretel and Hansel, which is the movie where the girl is pulling hair out of her mouth in the poster, which is just kind of the retelling of Hansel and Gretel, in case the title didn't give that away. Pulled in a little bit over $6 million this past weekend, and sitting at a budget of about $5 million. It's off to a solid start. I mean, they've already made back the production budget, and I'm sure it'll make up the rest of marketing and a nice little sum in the weeks going forward.
Yeah, I really dug this movie, surprisingly. So it's directed by Oz Perkins, Norman Bates' son. And so he's done a few like indie-ish horror movies. He did this movie for A24, The Black Coat's Daughter, a few years ago. And this movie, I think, is destined for a cult following, because it's not that like that cheapo horror movie thing you would think of, like even from the poster where you see the hair getting pulled out of the mouth. It's not like, oh, it's all this weird imagery and jump scares. And it's really just like a really weird mood piece where like each picture, like each frame is like a painting, and all these reds and really interesting oranges and blues. And it looks really, it's very atmospheric and moody at all times. And I really dug it. It's kind of like a warm blanket of creep the whole time, where there's just the kind of just weird shit happening. And it's you could like throw like an A24 logo on the front of this thing and you wouldn't really bat an eye at it. It's not the like your stereotypical January horror movie, which I really appreciate. It does seem that that cinema score is at a C-, which I think does lend itself to the kind of that cult audience, because I think there's going to be a lot of people who hate this movie and a lot of people who find something really interesting in it. But I really liked it. I think there's definitely a lot of craft here, and it's very interesting, and it's a very interesting way to retell this story that we've seen so many times. I'd recommend it. I would tell people to seek this one out.
I had no idea this was coming out till like 2 days before the weekend, and you know what? Based off everything I've heard, I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah, it's just so bizarre. It's not it's definitely an oddity. It's one of those, you can tell it was compromised a little bit. There's like some weird narration in it, and from Gretel, played like Sophia Lillis from It. It seemed like that was just kind of added in there to kind of just cater to general audiences, because it really doesn't. It just kind of explains what's kind of already in the imagery already. And it feels like there's like probably like 10 to 15 minutes cut out of this movie. It's really short. It's not even 90 minutes. I think it's like 87, something like that. But yeah, it's such a strange little thing that I really enjoyed, and it's kind of like the whole thing about it is like, oh yeah, great production design and imagery, but like the plot, like what is it? I don't even know if it's even trying to have a plot. It's just kind of, I mean, it's just the weird twisted Hansel and Gretel story where they come upon a witch, and then just like kind of just weird shit happens, and then the movie's over, and that's kind of it. There are some interesting like little feminism stuff in there as well, with Gretel being the older of the two, and this and she's like coming into her own in here. I think this could be something that people return to like at like midnight screenings or things like that. It's very strange. I would tell people not to let it pass by, even if you're gonna like rent it at some point. It's very weird.
Yeah, I like this is one that I've seen the trailers for, but just I don't know, for some reason it never really just kind of popped out as something I needed to see. And with going to Sundance last week, it just kind of fell through, and I don't know if I'll get a chance to come back to it. But I like watching horror movies succeed, because I think, especially when they're inventive like this, I really hate watching something like Insidious Chapter 7 with the same 5 jump scares make millions when you actually have some of the more inventive stuff flopping. And I'm glad to see this moving forward pretty strong at the start.
Yeah, I don't think there's probably like one jump scare in it, and it's kind of an earned one because it leads to like somewhat of a sequence afterwards. But yeah, it's just very bizarre and very like trippy imagery, and I'd be interested to see what Oz Perkins does next, or what, like, if he gets into more mainstream stuff, or if he goes back to maybe 324 for something. He's a very inventive dude who's doing a lot of interesting things visually. So I'd really like to see what he does next.
Yeah, and so with that, we'll move on to The Gentleman, which pulled in just a little bit over $6 million this past weekend, and also opened in an additional 500 theaters, and is it's like critically it's been kind of a mixed bag, but as a Guy Ritchie fan, I'm looking forward to seeing this hopefully this week, sitting at about $48 million worldwide, which for something that's going to be much smaller than Guy Ritchie's Aladdin is not off to that bad of a start. And I mean, it's got a budget of about 22, so The Gentleman is working, even if it's not working fantastically well.
Yeah, it's one of those things. We've kind of ragged on STX for a while, just with ugly dolls and Playmobil and all this other shit that they kind of pick up and save from other failed production houses. But I think this is one of their smarter moves, because this movie isn't very expensive, and they're only in charge of the U.S. Distribution, so like they're not even on the hook for all of that. And this movie's already made over 20 million, as you said. So yeah, they really can't complain. It's just a tidy little sum of money for this one. And it seemed like I saw this movie last night as I was catching up with a few movies, and it was a packed house, and people seemed to really like it. And there is something about having a bunch of just charming British people and Matthew McConaughey all in the same movie together, just kind of just like cursing at each other and just being very foul-mouthed and doing that kind of that gangster thing that Guy Ritchie loves to do. There's definitely something for a lot of people here, and I think people will find it because it's doing really well.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but it's one that I'm definitely going to get around to soon. I've just kind of been catching up on a couple of the like foreign or international film selections for the Oscars, and some other stuff that I've been trying to see. But it's one that I'm definitely looking forward to checking out soon. And I saw your tweet. You said it's just like Nick. I saw your tweet. You said it's like a perfectly fine Guy Ritchie film. Yeah,
if you're going by the Letterboxd standards of rating, it is like the definition of a 3-star, 3 out of 5 movie, where there's really not much to it. I mean, I guess in terms of plot mechanics, there's a lot to it because there's a little bit of twisting and turning and reveals and things like that. But it's not, in terms of viewer engagement, there's not, you don't really have to psych yourself up to see this or really get into some kind of contemplative mood to watch it or anything like that. It's just people being just kind of charmingly terrible. Like a lot of these characters are pretty racist, which is, I think that's one of the big points against this movie, which I definitely understand, because there's a lot of bad running jokes about the Chinese characters in this movie. It's not great. I think part of it is, I mean, they're just terrible people, but yeah, it's not great in that sense. But yeah, it's just a lot of just people just kind of hamming it up. And Hugh Grant is great in this. He's kind of channeling whatever he was doing in Paddington 2 somewhat as like he's a really sleazy, like kind of like British tabloid kind of journalist. He's just having a ball. And Colin Farrell is a boxing coach who he has a group of YouTube star fighters who are just recording things as they beat people up. It's absurd. It's a lot of fun people. Yeah, like I said, it's a lot of fun people just going nuts for 2 hours, and there's something to that. You can't really go wrong in that sense.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see it, and I'm a sucker for a Guy Ritchie movie in general, so I don't have much to complain about. Even in his worst movies, like I'm a Man from U.N.C.L.E. fan, even though there aren't many of us out there.
I love The Man from U.N.C.L.E. I stand that movie. Henry Cavill gets to act in that movie for once, and it's great. No, I love it.
It's just, I like what he sells. Say what you will about Downey's accent in the Sherlock Holmes movies. Granted, I haven't seen him in like 8 years, but I'm still there for those too.
I weirdly stand King Arthur. I guess I'm just a weird dude. I watched it and I was like, that wasn't terrible, because it's him doing his Guy Ritchie-isms, but in King Arthur stuff. So I thought it was so weird and kind of fascinating, because it's just Charlie Hunnam looking like a modern day English person, but he's doing King Arthur stuff. What's his face? David Beckham is guarding Excalibur at some point. It's pure insanity, and I kind of love that.
Yeah, that is pretty much it for the top 5. But there was another movie that opened up this weekend, The Rhythm Section, which is the Blake Lively movie about. It's basically like The Punisher, from what I understand. Basically, her family dies and she wants to find out who killed them. But it opened to a little under $3 million at $2.8 million against a $50 million budget.
$50.
Yeah, a $50 budget, a $50 million budget. So this one is crashing pretty hard, and this was in 3,000 theaters, so it's not going to get much bigger of a market, if any. This movie's gonna go away pretty quickly.
I saw this movie so I got out of my screening 2.5 hours ago, and I'm already forgetting most of what happened in this movie.
Yikes.
It's one of those. It's not good. It's really not good.
Yeah, I mean, this is it's probably one of the on the bad side for opening weekends for a film that is in a little over 3,000 theaters. That could be not breaking records, but that's probably going to make some lists.
Yeah, it's kind of one of it's like a classic January movie in all sense of the word, because one, it's just not very good. So yeah, like January, obviously, but it's also had really bad production issues. So I think this movie belonged to I think it was it Global Road who released Show Dogs and all that crap, and then quickly shuttered afterwards. So Paramount came in and saved this movie, and then Blake Lively, I think, got hurt during the filming of this movie. I think she broke her hand, and I think it did like a Tom Cruise Fallout thing where they kept that cut in the movie. I think you can see her breaking her hand. So if you want to go see it for that reason, go ahead. But so like production had to stop for like 6 months or something. So yeah, just a really messy kind of thing that they just kind of tossed into January, hoping that it would do something, and then it did not. So yeah, it's nothing really to write home about at all. It's just people died tragically, and then it's an overly serious movie about blood revenge, and Jude Law is there being charming for like a hot second, but then he disappears. And Blake Lively's trying really hard with a British accent, but not quite getting there. Yeah, it's just very messy. It's one of those bad movies that's not really fun to talk about because it's just kind of a bummer and not totally well done. So yeah, we're gonna forget about this movie very shortly if we haven't already.
Yeah, I wish Blake Lively would get cast in better movies because, like, I think when she's in a movie that works, like A Simple Favor, which I absolutely loved, I think she kills it. But I think she also gets stuck in a lot of movies that are not necessarily this same genre of movie, but the same kind of thing where it's just kind of a broken movie to begin with. And they're like, she's famous enough. And I'd really like to see her be in things better than, the Green Lantern and the rhythm section.
It's so true. I feel like A Simple Favor is like the one movie that's like kind of unlocked what she is as a star, and it's weird because I think she shares a lot of the same issues that Ryan Reynolds had at some point in his career, where he was in all these movies. Everyone was like, "Oh, he's like blandly handsome, but like, I don't really get what he's up to. Like, what's his thing?" And then they kind of like figured out with Deadpool, like, "Oh, he's this snarky asshole." And I feel like Blake Lively is a similar kind of just like she's like a dastardly, really fun, intoxicating kind of presence that it's not fun to watch when she's just like a drugged out prostitute in the rhythm section. It's just not fun to watch. I mean, and it's not even like thrilling or anything like that. It's just a struggle. It's not great.
Yeah, but we're not going to be talking about this movie. And there's always like, it's weird because I feel like the rhythm section has been made at least once a year. Like there's always just kind of a fringe, like vaguely spy revenge movie. Like there was Peppermint, I think last year, the year before that. There was Anna, which I couldn't even tell you what year that was. There's just a lot of these. This movie gets made a lot.
Yeah, it's like Miss Bala too last year.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. Like, and it's also just a terrible title for a movie. Like, what the fuck is the rhythm section? In the movie, it's like, oh, Jude Law is like her trainer, like her assassin trainer, telling her what to do and things like that. And it's like, oh, like think of your breath and your heart as the rhythm section, where you have to like, get them in sync or whatever. It's like some stupid thing about keeping calm and relaxed, and it doesn't really matter at all. He explains it, and then like at one point later on, like you can hear her beating like kind of loud through sound effects, but that's kind of it. So it's just like that's supposed to be like the metaphor of the movie, and it's just really stupid. So like you should have just named it like Blake Lively Spy Assassin, or I don't know, something that makes sense, because people are just like, they're like, what the fuck is the rhythm section? Like that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't track to like anyone who just like sees like a poster or like the trailer or anything like that. It's just a weird choice.
Big rip.
Big oof.
That is the rhythm section, and that is also the last time we'll be talking about it. But
no,
I'm
bringing it back. We're doing rhythm section spoiler pod, spoiler series. That's all we're going to talk about for the next 5 weeks.
But next week, the peak of cinema returns with the sequel to Suicide Squad, Birds of Prey, which I'm honestly kind of excited for, because it looks like they're just being really weird with it, and they've stripped it down a lot, and it's just Harley Quinn is basically the only returning character, and they're getting into some of the lesser known Batman villains, and they just seem to be doing whatever they feel like doing with it, which I think is what DC is slowly kind of learned with Shazam and Wonder Woman, and unfortunately Joker within the past year, that they kind of have license to do that. So I'm here for Birds of Prey.
I'm hyped.
Yeah, me too. It was on my most anticipated movies of the year. It looks really fun, and it looks like a really good recalibration of the Harley Quinn character. And she looks like she's shooting people with bubble gum, and they explode into like confetti. It's like, sure, like why not? This looks fun.
Yeah, it's looking good. I mean, even ever since the first trailer, I remember there was not complete mixed reception, but I know there was some people on both sides. But I really dug the first trailer, and I like the direction that they're kind of going in with this thing. So I'm looking forward to it next weekend for sure.
Yeah, we've also got Horse Girl, which was a movie I saw at Sundance that I absolutely adored, as well as Timmy Failure, which is a movie at Sundance I very strongly chose not to see.
Me too.
So those will both be out streaming. Horse Girl on Netflix and Timmy Failure on Disney Plus. So it should be a much more exciting weekend, at least on our part.
So Disney's pulling up to Sundance.
Yes, with Disney Plus content about a kid.
Not strongly, but they're there.
It's about a kid and his polar bear business partner.
Neat.
So think of that how you will.